So, as I understand it, you're here mainly because the bad voice has just been getting stronger and stronger and stronger and telling you to kill yourself a lot, and you're starting to get afraid that maybe you might actually try to kill yourself.
Yes.
And you've been hearing voices quite a long time?
As far back as I can remember.
So like before age 10 even?
Oh yeah.
And there's the one voice that says that you should kill yourself. What exactly does it say?
Just that you'd be better off dead, you're worthless, you need to leave, you need to go away, you need to go away forever.
And then there's other voices you hear as well?
Yeah, there's a nice voice that tells me, no, I deserve to live, it's okay, you're doing fine, people make mistakes, so stuff like that.
Do those two voices ever talk to each other?
No.
Do either of them ever like comment on what you're doing? I guess.
Oh yeah, they both do.
Oh, they
but
both
it's like they do it independently of the other.
Okay. So they comment on what's going on, what you're doing.
So
what
I hear
we
from
should
this
do.
side, and then I hear from this side, and then I hear from this side.
And
there's another voice. I mean, do you want to know?
Sure. Yeah.
Well, it's not really a voice. It's just this little, like a little kid crying all the time.
And that also you've been hearing for a long time?
Yeah.
And do either
it's
of the
gotten
voices
a little bit louder recently,
a little
though.
Louder? Do either of the voices ever talk to the crying child voice?
Sometimes the nice voice, yeah, sometimes the nice voice talks to the little baby.
And does the negative bad voice ever make a comment? Or say anything?
Not
not
just
really?
that, well, not to the baby.
Oh, okay.
But it hates the baby, I know that.
How do you know that?
Because it just starts screaming when the baby's crying to shut up. And
Oh, okay. Oh, so it does say shut up.
yeah, I guess it does talk to the baby.
Okay.
It's just not very nice to it.
And there's more questions I would need to ask to get more details about all of that, but one thing that we do sometimes is we call it talking through, which may seem a little odd, but it's just an assessment technique that we do. And it's also part of treatment, actually, is instead of I just ask you questions, what do the voices do, what do they say, how long they've been around, sometimes I ask the voices questions, and then the voice answers inside your head, and you tell me what the voice's answer was. And some people, the voice just doesn't respond, but sometimes the voice will actually answer questions which can help me figure out what's going on inside you. I don't know if that seems particularly weird or...
No, I just told you to shut up.
Oh, okay. So then the first question so that's okay if I go ahead and try and ask the voice a few questions? Okay with you?
Which one?
The angry one that says you should kill yourself and you're no good.
Okay.
So that's okay with you if I try that?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So the first question I was going to ask was whether the voice can hear me or not, but since it already said I should shut up, I already know the answer to that question. So I'll just refer to you as...
It's getting mad at you.
Is it? Well, voice, what are you mad about?
Because you think you're trying to help me.
Well, for a moment, actually, I'm trying to ignore her, and I want to ask you some questions and understand you a little bit better.
It's a lie.
I'm lying when I say that?
That's what it's, yeah.
Okay. Well, it could be a lie. You're right. So what I would like you to do is just keep an eye on me and check it out and see whether I seem to be lying. But right now, I'm not actually lying because I'm just wanting to ask you some questions. And one question is, why do you think it's so important for her to kill herself, and why do you think she's so bad and worthless?
She's just stupid.
But she finished a degree at university. She's not that intellectually stupid. What is it that's stupid about her?
I just hate her.
How come? What did she do to make you hate her?
She tries to be nice to people.
Yeah. Well, I don't exactly get that. I don't see why her trying to be nice to people would be so incredibly annoying to you. What about that is so annoying?
Because people are stupid.
Okay, so she shouldn't be nice to people because people are stupid. In her life, has she ever had people around her who've been really stupid?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of stupid stuff happened?
Well, people think she's stupid because she hears voices.
Right. Is there any other reason that you think she's stupid besides... Well, that's not really why you think she's stupid. That's why other people think she's stupid. But I want to come back to why you think she's stupid. And I don't quite understand that. She's stupid because what?
I don't think it really knows. I think it just hates me.
Oh, okay.
And doesn't think I can do anything right. And just, I don't think it really knows.
Oh, okay.
It just feels like it almost feels like it's meant to be there just to remind me of all the things I can do wrong and how I'm going to mess up and how dumb and bad I am.
Oh, okay. I got you. And so you mentioned that the basic reason you're here is because you should kill yourself is getting stronger, and you're wondering if you're going to be able to hold that off, or you might actually attempt to kill yourself. And you also mentioned that the crying child voice seems to be getting worse recently. Does the crying child voice affect the angry negative voice at all?
Yeah, it tells it to shut up. It hates it.
Right, oh, you mentioned that. So that's what the behavior of the angry voice is, shut up. But can you tell how the crying child affects the angry voice emotionally?
I just know it gets real strong. The energy, the more the child cries, the stronger I can feel the angry voice.
So the anger gets bigger.
Uh-huh.
Any other feeling that
intense.
seems to go along with the anger that the angry voice is having?
It just feels like it's going to blow up.
Okay. So get really annoyed, agitated, angry.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And so the baby, if I could just make the baby shut up.
Mm-hmm. How could you do that?
I don't know.
Because it's not like there's a little switch on the side of your head where you can just turn voices off, right?
No, I mean, I just tell it to, I try to say, just be quiet, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet.
Okay. Does that help at all sometimes?
Sometimes it calms down a little bit.
Would be pretty safe guess to say it only calms down a little bit for a little while?
Yes.
Doesn't really solve the
Yes.
problem? And then it escalates back up, and then the angry voice gets more angry. Does the angry voice get on, you should kill yourself, even more when the baby's crying even more?
Yes.
Okay. And sometimes does the angry voice just get on you about you're no good, even if the little voice is not crying?
Yes.
Okay, so it can be either way.
Right.
And is there anything that any like pattern to it where you seem to be doing something in particular that really riles up the angry voice?
I can't find a pattern.
Can't find a pattern. And so I'll probably ask the angry voice a couple more questions, but for a minute I want to see if the good voice is listening. So my question is...
She's very weak, but she can hear.
Okay. She said inside that she can hear?
I know she can hear.
How do you know that?
I heard her.
Oh, okay. You heard her say it?
I heard her and you can feel it.
Oh, okay. So good voice. What I'm thinking now is I want to kind of see if we can make
She
it...
said she's very tired.
I'm sure. Well, all that crying and all that yelling, that would be tiring. But if you can just kind of hang in there for a bit. What I'm thinking is it might be possible to do some kind of a deal here involving you, the good voice, and the angry voice. If you have enough energy, where does that crying child seem to have a location inside you, or
It's in the left corner.
what's it like there? Is it
It's very dark.
dark? Well, what I'm thinking is if the good voice could go get that crying child and take her to like maybe a bedroom or someplace that's safe, that has got a bed and some pillows and maybe some light.
She needs a crib.
A crib, okay. So now you might say, okay, how do we get a crib inside? Often just by deciding it's going to happen, your mind can make it happen. I don't know exactly how that works. But so if the good voice could get a crib and maybe some books to read, or...
Okay, you're making the angry voice really mad.
Well, here's why I'm saying this. Okay, back to the angry voice for a second. What I'm trying to think of is maybe the good voice could help the child to cry less and calm down and go to sleep.
So the baby will shut up?
Yeah. That's basically, I'm trying to figure out a way to get the baby to, quote, shut up. which I think would be helpful for you because it's so annoying, makes you so agitated when the baby's crying. So if you just stay with it for a second, back to the good voice. So if that would be possible, would you be willing to work on that good voice?
She's very tired. She's very weak.
Right. Maybe from having something to do and doing something to help the voice, maybe that would bring you some energy. Plus, if the baby calms down, then the angry voice not so agitated, not yelling so much, so that might be less of an energy drain on you as well.
Yeah.
That would make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And so a crib, maybe some books to read, maybe some music to play. What else?
No, she just wants to sleep. The baby just wants someone to hold her and to help her sleep.
Hold her and sleep, okay. And the good voice could do that? Maybe would be willing to try.
I think she's willing to try. She's just scared about the dark voice, the angry voice.
Okay. So now back to the angry voice. So angry voice, what I'm trying to do is, I'm not trying to like take away any power control from you or anything like that. I'm just trying to see if I can make a deal with the good voice that's tired to help the baby go to sleep so the baby's not crying so you're less irritated. So that would be of benefit to you, right?
Right.
Okay. So but what I'm asking for is a little something in return, which is, I think when you're angry and yelling, it's understandable that you'd be angry and yelling, but when you're angry and yelling and talking about she's no good and you should kill yourself, I'll bet you that makes the little baby even more scared and more upset. So if you would agree to no, you got to kill yourself, no yelling and screaming at her, let's say for 3 months.
He can't promise that.
I'm not doing a total promise, just if you'd agree to really consider it strongly and give it a try.
3 months is way too long.
Okay, what would be not too long?
3 days.
Okay, I'll take 3 days. Could we do 3 weeks?
He said not to push your luck.
Well, I'm a little pushy, so 3 weeks is definitely too much.
So he'll try 3 days.
Okay, so 3 days it is. So if we can have no threats of suicide, no you're bad, you're ugly, you should die for 3 days, then that would give the, quotes, good voice time to try and soothe the baby, get the crying down. And if that's working, then maybe we could do like another 3 days.
Well, then what's he supposed to do?
That's a good question. Before I answer that though, if we go back to, if we do this in 3 day at a time deal, if it seems by the end of 3 days, the good voice has actually got the baby to sleep more, or the baby's actually more calm, then maybe we could do another 3 day extension.
He's not going to do any extensions if he doesn't understand what he's going to do. He's not going to go away, he's not going to disappear, and the good voice is going to have all the power.
I don't want anybody to go away. This is not about going away at all.
Well, then what's he supposed to do?
Well, number one, that's a good question. What would he like to do?
I don't know.
Well, how about if during the 3 days we work on that, try and figure out what could the angry voice do? So, I mean, I don't have the answer right now, but
like ask him what he wants to do?
Yeah.
All he knows how to do is be angry and mean.
That doesn't sound like a lot of fun.
It is for him. That's all he knows what to do. That's all he knows.
Okay, so we'd have to brainstorm and try and figure out what's something, maybe he kind of already knows how to do something, he just doesn't even know he knows it. Or maybe there's something he always thought it would be fun to do, he's never had a chance. Or maybe we can just try and come up with something. I don't have the answer right now, but I'd like to work on it for the next 3 days.
You want to give him something else to do?
Or him choose something else to do, or come up with some suggestions, yeah.
Okay.
Because the idea here is not to get rid of him, or to make him be useless, or tie him up. It's to have him involved in things, but not so angry and agitated all the time, because the baby's not crying so much. And then maybe life could be a little bit more fun for him too. I said him, I think, did you mention that the voice is male?
Mm-hmm.
Right, I thought you did somewhere. Or maybe it was in the intake information. You with me?
Yes, I'm here.
What does the angry voice think about that?
I don't know. He's just real quiet. He's not saying anything. I think he's just listening.
Oh, okay. Is any comments that the good voice wants to make on that?
She wants to do it.
And what's the crying child doing right now?
I don't hear it.
Which is good, because it seems like even talking about the idea that the angry voice is going to yell less, and just talking about the idea that the good voice is going to find a crib for her, even just that has been kind of calming temporarily.
I guess so.
Which shows like, hey, maybe it might work. So the door's wide open here for the angry voice to make a comment, but if the angry voice doesn't want to make a comment right now, that's fine. But I'm just saying, anything else you want to add
no,
from
he
inside?
wants you to leave him alone for a while.
Okay. That sounds like a good plan. So nice having a chance to talk to you and those two voices as well. So I'll touch base with you this afternoon again?
Okay.
Okay, good. So I wasn't exactly clear from the intake information that was gathered over the phone. What's the main reason that you're here?
Well, because I'm afraid something bad is going to happen to me. I'm AIDS, anything, I've got to...
Because you've been doing quite a lot of sexual acting out, is that right?
Yeah.
And as I understand from the intake, it's a lot of one-night stands, basically?
Yeah.
And this has been going on for a while. How long?
At least 10 years.
Okay. And
I mean, there are times where it's better and I don't, but...
So we'd be talking, in the last 10 years, we'd be talking about like 0 to 10, 10 to 50, more than 100 one-night stands?
Oh, I don't know.
But
Let's
kind
just
of
say a lot.
general ballpark, lots.
Yeah.
Okay. And if it wasn't for the threat of AIDS or STDs or something like that, would you be okay with it?
Well, no. I mean, I know it's not okay, but I can't, I don't know. I just like to do it.
What do you like about it?
It feels very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I have a lot of control and...
And the guys seem to enjoy it?
Oh, yeah.
And do you actually enjoy like it in terms of arousal and sexual feelings?
Sometimes.
Not all the time?
Well, that's not the primary feeling, but sometimes, yeah.
So the primary feeling is the power control?
Yeah.
And sometimes you have the power and control without any sexual arousal. Sometimes you have it with sexual arousal. Is that right?
I tend to have it less if there's sexual arousal.
Okay, so you feel more power, more in control if you're not sexually aroused.
Right.
Okay.
But they are.
Right. And they don't seem to mind. They're
Right.
not very concerned about what you're experiencing.
Right.
And do you ever hook up with those guys again?
No. Mm-mm.
They ever, any of them ask for your phone number or want to see you
Oh,
again?
yeah. Most of them.
Oh, okay. And so you always turn them down?
Or I make up a fake number.
Oh, okay. And do you get power control in a rush just from that?
Yeah, I wish I could know for sure if they tried to call, because that'd be great if I could
Right.
know.
It's almost like you should have a separate fake number cell phone that they could call.
That's
and you
a
would
good
never
idea.
answer. Of course, I'm not actually suggesting that for real.
Hmm.
So
But I'd love to know. I'd love to know if they're calling and they can't get a hold of me, and how
if
that
they,
makes them feel.
and if they were, that would make you feel how?
It just, I mean, it makes me happy just thinking about it.
What's happy about it?
Because those sorry sacks of shit are out there trying to get someone to call them back, and they're interested, and they're being rejected. And
Right. Now, you have a childhood sexual abuse history, right?
well, yeah.
So, how long did the abuse go on for?
From age 5 to probably around about when I got my driver's license.
And who was the perpetrator?
My stepdad.
Oh, okay. How old were you when he came on the scene?
Just a little bit before I turned 5.
Oh, okay. So the abuse started pretty soon after he came on the scene.
Yes.
Did your mother ever know about it?
That's partly why I left the house, because I told her, but she didn't listen or believe me as I was growing up. But then when I got a little bit older, she just told me that it was the way I dressed and the clothes I wore, and she says she could tell the way I looked at him that there was something that I was drawn to him. So she just made it all about me.
Did you agree with her or disagree with her?
Back then? I think back then I probably did blame myself.
And besides the fact that your mother was blaming you, were there any other reasons you blamed yourself?
Well, I mean, I would go to him. I did go to him.
Why do you think you did that?
That's pretty sick, I know.
Right, but is there some reason that you did it?
I think because I wanted to be with him.
And why would you want to be with him?
Because I was pretty sick. I think I've just kind of been messed up my whole life.
This happens to be your stepdad, but it could be your dad. So it's dad or stepdad. Is it unusual and sick for a girl to want to spend time with her dad? Or stepdad? Just in
like
and of
a little
itself.
Kid?
Yeah.
No.
Is there something sick about a child wanting to be special and be loved by stepdad?
No.
Is there anything unusual, sick about a child wanting to feel good?
You mean sexually?
Just feel good, period.
No.
Right, so I often tell the story of the woman who, this is just a made-up story. She was in an airplane flying across the Sahara Desert. The plane went down. She survived the crash. She's crawling through the Sahara Desert, maybe like after 24 hours, almost about to pass out from dehydration, just makes it over one more sand dune, and there's this bottle of water, which probably fell out of an airplane, except it's all gross, smelly, it's kind of swamp water, so she drinks it. The next 24 hours go by again, she's about to pass out from dehydration, she gets over one more sand dune, there's another one of these bottles of really gross, stinky water, and 3 feet away there's a case of perfectly normal, good bottled water. So she drinks a bunch of that, the rescuers show up.
She drinks what?
The normal water.
Okay.
The rescuers show up and she's fine. So why do you think the first day she drank that bottle of stinky, gross water?
Because it's all she had.
So there's not something weird about her that she's got some bizarre fetish for swamp water.
No.
She was dying of dehydration and that was the only water available, so she made do with it.
Right.
The next day when she had a choice, naturally she chose the perfectly normal, decent water.
Right.
And we wouldn't blame her or think badly about her. That's completely normal and natural.
Well, yeah.
So you grew up starving for attention and affection and validation, which you wanted because all children do. So you had to make do with a sorry substitute because the normal, healthy, natural stuff wasn't available to you. Just for your survival. Same as the girl in the desert.
Yeah, but you don't have to have sex to survive.
But if that's how you're taught that you get some good feelings and you get some attention and you have value, that's what you learn. So maybe it's really not evidence that you're sick or bad or wrong or ugly. Maybe it's just evidence that you were a desperate little girl and you were abused and exploited by a pedophile.
And so you think I just wanted like love and attention?
Yeah. It doesn't sound like you got too much from your mom either.
No. It was pretty lonely.
So maybe it's nothing to do with you wanting it or going to him or seducing him or...
Right.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because what you're describing, we use this little model we call the victim, rescuer, perpetrator triangle. So it's a triangle. There's a victim on one corner, perpetrator on another, rescuer on another.
Mm-hmm.
When you were a kid, I didn't ask you, about your biological dad or anything. We'll get to that in a little while. But when you were a kid with your stepdad, you and your mom, you clearly were trapped there. You were just a little kid. You couldn't escape it. You couldn't stop it. So you were the victim of emotional neglect, emotional abuse, sexual abuse. Your stepdad was the perpetrator of the sexual abuse. And your mom was the rescuer who failed to show up and take care of things. I mean, she was around physically, but she didn't show up as a rescuer. So often in adulthood, when you've been a victim as a child and you've felt powerless and trapped and out of control, in adulthood you flip the triangle. So now you become the person who's in control. So you got the power, you got the control, you're in charge, you make it happen when you want, to take you away from those childhood feelings. So it looks to me like that's what you've been doing, that you're doing all these one-night stands, so now you're in control. You're, quotes, the perpetrator. They're perfectly happy to be perpetrated on. But for you, it's all about getting into the power control position to take you away from the reality of childhood. So we call that an undoing defense. So you're really being the rescuer for yourself by becoming the perpetrator who takes you out of the victim role. It's a little convoluted, but does that make sense?
Kind of, except I think those guys, those jerks, I mean, they deserve to feel bad.
But they don't. They just had a one-night stand.
Well, I mean, what kind of idiot's going to take a girl home one night? I mean, they're just jerks. They all just want to have sex. They're just jerks.
Right now, I'm not focused on them. I'm focused on you. What they think, feel, need, want.
I mean, they kind of deserve it.
Right. But when so these guys are not technically victims, no crimes being committed. They're perfectly willing participants.
Yeah.
But emotionally, in terms of your life story, they're now your victims and you're the perpetrator against them, so that you don't have to be the childhood victim any longer. Actually, in objective reality, they're not victims at all.
No, they don't think of that.
No, but in your emotional story, they're now in the role of the victim.
Because they can't call me back.
Yeah, and that gives you a rush, power, and control. Just like your stepdad would get rush, power, and control.
Because I'm hurting them, because I know they're in pain and they're uncomfortable or they're feeling rejected.
Even if they're not actually feeling that.
But I believe they do.
Right, and so
I hope they do.
In this triangle in your life, that's what's going on. They're the victims and you're now the perpetrator.
So you're saying I'm like my stepdad?
In kind of a way.
Well, that's gross.
That's why you might want to consider changing the behavior pattern. And I think the only reason that you can feel like you get the rush and you get the power and you get the control and this is all good is because you're actually disconnecting from yourself. You're disconnecting from your own unresolved trauma.
Well, who wants to connect with that?
Nobody. But if you really were in touch with that, the one-night stands would just not be tolerable. You wouldn't be able to do the behavior.
Yeah, but I don't want to get in touch with that.
I understand, and I'm just pointing out that you couldn't do the behavior if you were in touch with that. So
yeah.
Doing the behavior depends on being disconnected from yourself.
Right.
But the problem is, it's really the unresolved trauma underneath that's running the whole thing. If you didn't have that unresolved trauma, you wouldn't have to get away from it. If you didn't have to get away from it, you wouldn't have to do the one-night stands.
Okay. That makes sense.
So then this is something that we want to look at and work on.
Okay.
Good. Well, from that beginning, then we can move forward, start getting into the details of how we go about working on this.
Okay.
Good. So, as I understand from your gynecologist, you've had this pelvic pain for quite a while. A lot of tests, a lot of investigations, and the doctors can't come up with any explanation for it. And that's basically why you were referred to me?
Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing, but
right.
Yeah.
And so this is pain, like, is it vaginal, low pelvic?
Both.
Okay. And is there any sort of pattern to it? Does it happen at any particular time?
I mean, well, usually when we're having sex.
And how is the marriage just in general?
I think it's good. I think we have a good marriage.
How, do you love him?
Mm-hmm.
He loves you?
Mm-hmm. He's putting up with a lot.
Right. Because when the pain starts, then do you have to stop the...
Yes, absolutely. I mean, yes, you start screaming.
Oh, yeah, you start screaming?
Yes.
And is there any other kind of symptom or pain or anything that happens with your body ever when you're trying to have sex?
More often it's pain, but other times, oddly enough, it's like I can't feel anything. It's like I go, I just kind of go numb from the waist down.
So like if somebody went like this, you wouldn't even feel it maybe?
Right.
And
I can't.
when
yeah.
that happens, does the sex stop then, or do you carry on with it?
Well, sometimes I carry on with it, but I start getting freaked out like something's wrong with me because I wonder if I have a stroke or something, because that's kind of weird.
Right. And then how long do you stay numbed out like that for?
Usually just for like 10 minutes or so. It's not real long.
So even before you go to sleep, your sensation comes back?
Yeah. And that's why I'm not so freaked out about that anymore, because I know it'll come back. I don't know why it's doing it, but I'll eventually come back.
And before you were married, did you have sex partners?
Mm-hmm.
And did you have the pain then with them?
Mm-mm.
Okay. And you've been married how many years?
5.
Okay. And the pain, did it start kind of like right on the honeymoon or not for a while?
No, it kind of just seems like the longer we get married, the worse it gets.
Okay. And so that pain that you experience, have you ever felt that pain a long time ago, back in the past sometime?
That same kind of pain?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When was that?
When I had sex as a child.
With who?
My father.
So you were molested by your dad when you were a little kid?
Mm-hmm.
From what age to what age?
I think it started around 2. I think it stopped when I got into school.
Into elementary school?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you were really young.
Mm-hmm.
How do you even know about it?
Well, because I can remember it.
Oh, okay. Did your mom know about it at all?
Mm-mm.
And it just stopped for some reason, you're not sure why?
I think he liked them really, really young, and I think I got too old, and I think he found other little girls.
Oh, okay. Really little?
Yeah.
Well, I want to explain. Now, of course, I can't come up with a final answer just on meeting you briefly. But the reason you've been referred to a psychiatrist is obviously your gynecologist thinks this might be emotional somehow or other. And this is something that I see very commonly. So when somebody's, say, been in the Gulf War and they come back and they're at home and they're not feeling too bad, and all of a sudden a car backfires and it's a big noise, all of a sudden they have a flashback of a combat scene in Iraq or Afghanistan. And then they go to sleep and they have a nightmare and they wake up.
PTSD.
Yeah, PTSD. So everybody can see that's a flashback and that's PTSD, and that's obviously they're not having a flashback of eating a sandwich, they're having a flashback of combat.
Right.
So it all makes sense and all ties together. But there's a lot of other things that are flashbacks in a sense, but they're not pictures and they're not tied to combat. So you can have a flashback where you just feel a sudden wave of terror and fear, but you don't have the picture. Or you can have a flashback where you sort of have the visualization of the combat scene, but like there's no feelings attached to it whatsoever. So you can have all different kinds of bits and pieces of the trauma.
Okay.
And one of the bits and pieces of the trauma is how your body was feeling. So you can have, so if we're talking about a combat vet, the combat vet doesn't have a flashback just when he's drinking a glass of water, because there's no reason. Right. He has a flashback when it sounds like a rifle shot. So that's the trigger. And the trigger has to be a reminder somehow or connected to the trauma. Your trigger is attempting to have intercourse, and what you flash back to is the physical pain that you experienced when your dad was molesting you. So it's a flashback, but we don't normally call it flashback. We call it a psychosomatic symptom. But it's really the physical body component of the whole picture. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
And so what we want to do is try, first of all, figure that out, see if that theory makes sense to you. And then what we want to do is, by talking about it, maybe some art therapy techniques, maybe a couple of groups I might recommend for you, we can start connecting the pieces back together. So if you just intellectually get it, okay, this isn't cancer, this is not some strange disease I'm going to die from, this is understandable, this is connected to the abuse, and then you can maybe connect the physical pain. It's hard to have really detailed memories when you're that little, but what the pictures that you have, the feelings that you have, sort of connect it all back up into a whole package that makes sense. Then when the physical pain is connected into the story and connected into memory, connected into the emotions, it won't be so likely to just pop up on its own. So it's kind of like anchored and connected to a lot of other stuff. And then as you talk about it, process it, work through it, the sort of energy charge goes down, and then it can just be something that you remember instead of something that intrudes and takes over. And the numbing, I think, is just a counter defense to the pain. So the pain is threatening, either does come up or it's threatening to come up. Just turn the valve off and feel nothing.
How am I doing that? They thought I had MS.
Right. And MS can be very tricky to diagnose early on. But people don't generally have MS just when they're having sex with their husband.
Yeah, they ruled it out. But
right.
I mean, how do I stop doing that?
Exactly how your mind and your brain make that happen,
yeah.
we don't exactly understand. But fortunately, we don't have to exactly understand like what every little neuron in your brain is doing to do the therapy work and have the recovery.
Okay, well, I want this to stop.
Good. So I think that there's no guarantees in the mental health field. Nobody can give you a 100% guarantee of success. But based on the literature and my own experience, there's a very realistic chance that without a tremendous amount of therapy, we could get this physical pain to resolve. That's
Good.
Realistic, possible, but not guaranteed.
Good. Well,
Good.
my husband said he'd pay for the therapy.
Yeah, no trouble motivating him, huh?
Right.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
So, as I understand it from your therapist who referred you, we call this depersonalization. I'm sure you've heard the term by now.
Right.
I'll ask you to describe it in a second, but it basically started about 4 years ago after you smoked a joint and then boom.
Yeah, it was pretty, I mean.
And what is it
quick.
that you experience? What's going on?
How's it feel, you mean?
Yeah.
I just feel kind of, I mean, like I'm not connected with myself. I'm not really there. I don't feel, everything just feels kind of fuzzy. It's just, doesn't feel real. It's hard to describe, but it's just not, it's like I'm not in myself.
And you feel that way right now?
A little bit.
And are you ever not in yourself so much that you're up above watching your body?
Mm-mm.
So you don't go that far?
Mm-mm.
Okay. And is it kind of like pretty steady all the time, every day?
Yeah. It just varies on how much, to the degree of it, but it's always there.
And I understand you've tried a few different antidepressants and
Yes.
stuff. Nothing's really touched
Yes.
it. So at the time that the depersonalization started, when you smoked the joint, was there any other change that happened?
I mean, it affected everybody. It changed how I don't feel connected to anyone, really.
Naturally, but I think your therapist mentioned something about nightmares that you had prior to that?
Oh, yeah. I used to have really bad nightmares all the time.
And did they stop when you started with
Yeah,
the
we don't really know why, but it kind of did.
At the same time as the depersonalization started, the
pretty
nightmares
close.
stopped?
Pretty close
Okay.
to it. They just went away. I actually didn't even notice until he asked me. I'm like, oh, yeah, I haven't had those in some time.
And what were the nightmares about?
When I was molested as a kid.
Who were you molested by?
An uncle.
From what age to what age?
I'm not positive. I think it's about 6 to around 9.
And
Then he moved off. So.
Oh, okay, well that was fortunate for you.
Right.
So in the dream, you're kind of like the dreamer watching the dream?
Well, yeah, I'm watching myself as a little girl.
Being molested by your uncle?
Yes.
And you're in around 6, 7, 8-ish, somewhere in there, in the dream?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're, no, it's not always possible to remember your dreams in great detail, but when you're watching that go on, what feelings are you feeling?
Well, I don't really feel a whole lot when I'm watching it, but the little girl is just very scared.
Okay. But you're not picking up on her fear. You're not actually feeling it?
I mean, I know she's feeling it, but I don't feel it so much.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't think this is just kind of random coincidence that the nightmare stopped and the depersonalization started at the same time. So in the literature, it describes the depersonalization can be triggered by all kinds of different things. Smoking a joint is well recognized,
Really?
LSD trip, certain types of medications. So sometimes there's nothing more than that. And there's no other rhyme or reason to it. And sometimes it's a traumatic event like a car wreck or something. So it seems like the joint is just kind of like an accidental trigger here. But I think that what's happened really fits with what we call the structural model of dissociation. There's a whole book about that in the literature about it. And the idea is that the adult self disconnects from a more emotional, wounded, traumatized aspect, a child self. And so you seem kind of like doubly disconnected. You're in the depersonalization to disconnect from the unresolved feelings from the sexual abuse, which you were close to in the nightmare, but even in the nightmare, you were still removed for it. So it's like one step removed is the child is in the nightmare.
Right.
You're watching the child, but you're not really feeling the feelings.
Right.
Then the next step removed is the nightmares are shut down and you're totally disconnected from yourself, your body, and those memories and feelings altogether.
Well, that's kind of smart, actually, I guess.
Yeah, it's very smart. Except that it has the price tag of being disconnected.
Right. For
So
my
then
own kids.
And then you're disconnected from all the good stuff in life, not just the bad stuff from the past.
Right.
And so one thing we do sometimes, there's a variety of different exercises and treatment strategies, but since you're a little bit more connected when you're asleep, when you're dreaming, than you are when you're awake, because at least you're seeing the child and you're watching the abuse, then we could try a technique called lucid dreaming. And lucid dreaming is a skill that you can actually practice and learn. And it's basically learning how to be dreaming, but awake and watching at the same time, which seems like a paradox. How could you be awake and asleep?
Right.
But actually you can be. And you do things like just make a very conscious intention every night when you're going to sleep to remember your dream, and make a conscious intention to be awake during your dream. And then as soon as you wake up, either in the middle of the night or in the morning, write down your dream in as much detail as you can, and then read the journal. So it's a whole series of just learning, practicing steps. Some people get the hang of it and it happens, some people just can't get the hang of it. But an example is a person who has Vietnam combat trauma, and they keep having this nightmare over and over and over and over and over and over. The Viet Cong guy is coming at them with the bayonet, and just as the bayonet's about to go in, they wake up. And they have this nightmare night after night after night after night. Then they learn lucid dreaming, and the guy goes, just as the Viet Cong guy's coming at him with the bayonet, he goes, "Stop, this is my dream. I'm not dreaming this dream anymore. Put your weapon down and walk away." And it actually happens, and the nightmare stops.
Wow.
Little bit variation on that I'm thinking with you is, I think you've got this traumatized, scared inner child locked inside, who's so far locked away you can't even see her in the day, you can only see her in the dream. And rather than go away, don't bother me anymore, she's holding some of your unresolved trauma from, which was clearly very traumatic events. And so it's kind of like you need to be her mom. Find her, soothe her, bring her into the present.
In my dreams?
Yeah,
Do
in
it
your
in my
dreams.
dreams?
Yeah. So we will have you practice and learn lucid dreaming so you can do that in the dream and say it's okay.
You can teach me how to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not everybody can get the hang of it, but we can give it a try. And then during the day, what I'd like you to start with is writing a letter to your dream child, which may seem a little hokey, but these things often are very powerful. So if you just imagine that your dream child is, which is little you back when you were 6, 7, 8.
I know exactly what she looks like. I used to see her in my nightmares all the time.
So what would you like to say in a letter to her? So I'd just like you to think about that, which is going to be a whole bunch of things about.
Can I tell her she can run away from him now?
Yeah. It's not her fault. It's going to be okay. You're going to be safe. I love you. All those things.
See, everything gets really fuzzy when you start saying those things. It feels worse.
Right. That's the kind of double-edged, two-sided coin aspect of recovery. If you've been avoiding your feelings through drinking, through drugs, through alcohol, whatever, you avoid it through depersonalization, which is healthier than drugs and alcohol. So when you decide to stop avoiding those feelings and go into them and get in touch with them and feel them and process them, the downside is you feel the feelings. And the reason you're not feeling the feelings is because they're no fun to feel. So there's no quick, painless route to recovery. that I know of. So it has this downside of getting in touch with those feelings, which is scary and overwhelming. That's why we take it one step at a time.
So that kind of means I'm doing it right, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
I'd like to learn. I didn't know. I never heard of this.
Okay. Well, we can get started on that shortly.
Okay.
Good. So in our previous session, we just kind of touched on something I want to come back to, which is you said that you're really getting sick and tired of hating yourself and your body so much.
Yeah.
And you've been feeling that way for quite a long time.
I think about my whole life.
Right. And what about your body do you hate in particular?
I mean, I know this sounds stupid, but kind of everything, especially the feminine parts of me.
And what about that do you hate? Why do you hate that?
I mean, I know this does not make sense logically, but on some level, I feel like it was because of this body that I was sexually abused.
Which was your brother, right?
Right.
And how do you kind of explain that to yourself? Why is it true that it's your body's fault that you were abused by your brother?
Well, because I mean, if I'd been another brother, this wouldn't have happened.
Well, that's true.
I mean, so just the fact that I have a girl's body set it up for me to be abused.
Okay. And that's also causing you some problems in dating and...
Well, yeah. I mean, every time someone starts to, if there's any kind of attraction there, or it starts to become more intimate, just any little thing, I kind of get freaked out, and the self-hate comes up, and I wind up pushing them away. And I'd like to get married someday. I want to have a normal life.
Which comes up first, the freak or the self-hate?
Probably the freaking out.
And freaking out means...
Kind of start to panic a little bit.
Okay. So just the idea of being sexual with somebody makes you feel very panicky.
Yeah, and then I hate myself, and it just gets compounded. Now I hate myself because this is a perfectly nice guy, and
right.
What the heck is wrong with me? And
okay, but so do you, in terms of behavior, do you walk away from the relationship? You don't phone the guy back? What happens?
I've done it all. I walk away. I don't call him back, or I pick a fight with them, or...
Oh, okay. Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And...
or I just keep... The longest I've ever been was he said he felt like I hated him, and I know I didn't hate him, but he could feel that...
Maybe he was just picking up on your self-hatred.
Maybe. Probably.
Did you hate your brother?
Back and forth.
Back and forth. So maybe it's some of the hatred at your brother that's...
I mean, he was also very nice to me and protected me, and I mean, it's very weird. It's all weird. But
so you had a bunch of positive feelings and a bunch of negative feelings for your brother?
Yes, so it's very weird.
And I understand you mentioned also that you're a pretty regular churchgoer.
Yeah, it's very important to me.
Right, and so you believe in God?
Yeah, which is why I've forgiven him.
Right. Forgiving your brother?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to try and hold that thought, but what I'm going to try and remember to come back to is you've forgiven your brother, but you don't seem to have forgiven your body.
That would be a fair analysis.
Okay.
I don't know how to forgive my body.
Okay. Because your body doesn't deserve forgiveness, but your brother does.
I don't. I know it doesn't make sense.
But that's what one would infer from the fact that you haven't forgiven.
Well, that's how it feels.
Right.
I just don't know how to change it.
So coming back to God then, it would be fair to say, well, there's only kind of two ways to look at God. Either he exists or he doesn't exist, right? If he doesn't exist, there's nothing to talk about.
But he exists.
But he exists, and you believe in him, so we're talking about God. So it would be a safe bet that God's probably bigger than you or me?
Well, yes.
Pretty safe bet that he's more powerful than you or me?
Yes.
Smarter?
Definitely.
Okay. And we're limited human beings, and we can't, understand everything God does or how he does it or why he does it.
Right.
But some things we can figure out. For instance, why do you think God put knees in our legs? This may seem like I'm off topic, but I'm not actually.
Why does God put knees on our legs?
Mm-hmm.
I guess he figured it's important for us to be able to bend.
Right. Why do you think God did not put our eyes on the bottoms of our feet?
You get dirt in your eye.
Right, and you wouldn't be able to see very well if you're standing on your eyes.
Right.
So, I mean, a lot of things about the body just they're well designed, they make sense. Because God's not like some nincompoop who got the design all wrong, right?
Right.
So God designed teeth, so it's easier to chew, right?
Correct.
I don't want to do another 20 examples because I think you got the point.
I got it.
Why do you think God put sexual organs in our body, and why did he make those organs generate sexual arousal?
So we'd have children.
Right, so if we didn't have sexual organs and we didn't have sexual desire, the whole human race would die out.
Yeah.
Which obviously was not God's plan.
Right.
So God thinks that our sexual organs are good. That's why he put them in there.
That makes sense.
You can use your hand for soothing a child or killing another person.
Right.
So your hand isn't intrinsically evil, but it can be used for good or used for evil.
Yeah.
Okay. Same with your sexual organs. If you're a male, you could use your sexual organs to express love to your wife and create children, or you could use them to abuse your sister.
Right.
That doesn't mean the sexual organs themselves are intrinsically evil. It's just what use we put them to.
Yeah, but the sexual organs are a part of the person.
Right. But all I'm saying is they're built and designed by God for a godly purpose.
Okay.
Which is procreation and sexual pleasure.
Okay.
You agreeing or not agreeing?
I agree.
Okay. Now, if I was, say your brother was physically abusive instead of sexually abusive.
Mm-hmm.
One day he just like whacked you really hard on the side of the head with a 2x4. Do you think you could have gone, I choose not to have a bruise?
No.
Your body just reacts the way it's designed to react.
Yes.
You can't stop it.
Right.
So when your body is sexually stimulated, it reacts in the way that God designed it to react, with arousal.
Yeah, but it feels really wrong.
It is wrong to sexually abuse a child. And it'll feel wrong because it's a messed up situation. But it's not your body that's wrong. It's your brother that's wrong. Your body is just reacting normally and naturally the way it's designed to.
I mean, I know that. That makes sense.
So
I
then,
hear that. I hear what you're saying.
So then it's not your body's fault.
Not the way you're describing it.
And your body doesn't deserve to be blamed or punished.
No. So then where do I put my anger?
Well, the answer so far has been on your body.
Because I don't want to be angry at my brother anymore.
So it's
I've
less
forgiven him.
uncomfortable to be angry at your body than to be angry at your brother?
Probably.
Let's flip it around the other way. If you can forgive your brother, why can't you forgive your body?
I don't know. I guess because I don't know where to put the anger.
Okay, so it makes it easier to forgive your brother if you've got all the anger directed at your body, because then you've forgiven your brother and you're not angry at him
I didn't
anymore.
think this through like this at the time, but
That's why we have therapists around to help people think things through.
I mean, that makes sense. I guess that's what I did.
What does forgiveness mean?
That you don't harbor anger at that person anymore.
Okay. Does forgiveness mean it never happened?
No.
Does it mean it was no big deal?
Well, you don't want it to be a big deal anymore. You don't want to have to.
Was it no big deal while it was happening?
No. It was a big deal.
So forgiveness does not mean it never happened, it was no big deal, it didn't affect me, it didn't hurt me. That's not what forgiveness is.
I don't think so.
Okay. So forgiveness is, the way I look at it is, forgiveness is not about any of those things. It never happened, it was no big deal, don't worry, it didn't bother me, we'll just keep it a secret. Forgiveness is more about kind of stepping out of the dance. That I'm not going to allow what my brother did to dominate how I feel about myself for the rest of my life.
Right.
But as long as you keep hating your body, that's exactly what's happening. Your relationship with your body is being determined, controlled by what your brother did to you.
Right.
So I think part of the forgiveness is transferring some of the anger back to your brother, acknowledging that, of course, you're angry at your brother. You have every right to be angry at him. You do love him, but you are angry at him, and you have both sets of feelings. So taking the anger off of your body, putting it back on your brother where it belongs, and then letting go of it.
I don't think he was just...
You don't have to do it to his face.
But I mean, I don't know that I don't even want to really be angry at him, because he wasn't too terribly much older than me, and he didn't really...
I forgot to ask you another question. So I asked why God put knees in and why he didn't put... Why did God put an amygdala in our brain?
I don't even know what that is.
Right, that's why it's a trick question. So that's a part of the brain, and there's your adrenal glands and different hormones and so on, which are all part of the fight, flight, getting angry. So why do you think God designed a part of the brain to feel, generate, experience anger? Why did he put anger machinery in our brains? It's part of God's design. Must be a reason for it.
Because I guess it's okay to be angry sometimes.
Yeah, like if you're the mother cub and the hunter's taking aim at, you're the mother bear and the hunter's taking aim at your cub, you better get angry at the hunter and try and chase him off, right?
Right.
So it's protective. It's normal, it's natural, and in some situations it's good to be angry.
Okay.
So you had the normal, natural anger response to somebody hurting you. That's a response built in to your brain and your body by God.
Okay.
So you have every right to that anger. It's not pleasant to have, but it's not avoidable.
Well, I don't want to hate him.
Right. So I'm saying it's a series of steps. Stop hating your body and blaming your body. Hate and blame him, because he deserves some kind of negative condemnation. It's not just okay to abuse your sister and get off forever. I'm not talking about the legal system here. I'm talking about in your emotions. And then when you get the anger directed where it really belongs, then you can do the forgiveness of your brother. But you can't really forgive your brother if you're just keeping all the anger at him hidden and buried inside yourself and directed at yourself. The anger at him is not getting resolved. It's just constantly getting shunted onto your body. So it feels like you're not angry at your brother because it's all directed over there.
Right. I understand.
Okay, so that makes sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
Good. So that's something we can work on then.
Yeah, well, you have to help me with that, though.
Can do.
Okay.
So it's clear then that the reason that you cut on yourself is it's very effective at making the bad feelings go away real fast.
Absolutely.
Right, and so it's very tried, true, dependable method.
Yes.
And this is just a hypothetical, but what do you think would happen if you just didn't cut?
Oh, I know what would happen.
What?
That's when I drink.
Oh, okay. Well, what if you didn't cut and also didn't drink? Hypothetical, remember?
I would kill myself.
Okay. So I'm going to define cutting, drinking, and killing yourself as all being forms of acting out. So what if you didn't act out in any way or do any kind of behavior of any sort? What would happen?
I would die.
How?
I would just die.
Not from doing something yourself. Your body would just like give up and die.
Yes.
What if your body didn't? I'll define that as your body acting out. What if your
So what if none of those were options?
Yeah.
It would be a very horrible, horrible, horrible place.
How long would you get stuck there?
Forever.
So you'd get lost in intolerable feelings basically forever. You'd never come back out.
Yes. I'd be gone. Yes.
Okay. So basically, now some people take this the wrong way and think I'm giving them permission to continue cutting, which I'm not. But actually cutting is really a form of self-soothing and kindness to yourself.
Right.
In that it's preventing a greater harm of suicide.
Right.
Or total insanity forever.
Right.
So from that perspective, if there was just two options, you're going to kill yourself, be insane forever, or you're going to cut, that's obviously the lesser of two evils. So really it's motivated by trying to soothe, calm, take care of yourself, get through the day, make it all right.
Right.
Okay. That's good to know, because then you're not just out of control person doing cutting for no reason. There's obviously a reason for it and there's a motive for it. And the motive kind of makes sense. It's not a healthy technique or strategy, but the motivation, the purpose are okay, which is just helping yourself to get through the day. Agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So if we were trying to paint cutting as kind of okay, my next question would be, okay, so if it's okay for you to cut on yourself,
Yes.
which it has been up till the present.
Correct.
Your behavior has clearly been saying it's okay to do that. So your niece is 12, you said? So what if your niece had like the worst day ever, horrible day at school, bad grades, teased, bullied. She came home and she said, say, would you mind teaching me how to self-mutilate? What would you do?
I know what you're doing.
What am I doing?
Well, you're trying to turn this around on me.
Yeah, I'm trying very hard.
Well, no, I would not tell her to go cut herself.
What if you found out that she was already starting to experiment with self-mutilation?
I'd tell her to stop.
And if she wouldn't stop?
I would get her help, because it's going to ruin her life.
Right. So why is it okay for you to cut on you and not okay for her to cut on her?
Because, I mean, she doesn't deserve it.
Why not?
Because she's got lots of people that love her and are there for her and can help her. She's got a tremendous future ahead of her. She's very smart. She's a wonderful little girl.
I just forget. You're 97 years old? Your life is over?
No.
You have no future?
No.
So it feels like you have no future.
Correct.
But in fact, you could if things got better.
Yeah, but, yeah.
You're not pushing 100. You don't have a terminal illness right now.
I feel that way, but
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, I'm sure. So she has a future is one thing that's different, but she has people who love her.
Right.
And so why on earth do people love her?
Because she's great.
So she's worthy of being loved.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not?
Didn't feel like it.
Are you an amphibian, a reptile, a bird, or a mammal?
Well, it depends on who you ask.
I'm asking you.
I'm a mammal.
Are you a bear, a rabbit, a cat, or a human being?
I'm a human.
Do all members of the human race intrinsically, automatically deserve love, protection, have basic rights? Their rights may get violated, but they have the rights.
At what age?
Minus 9 months to however long they live.
I mean, I think people do some... I don't think everybody's nice people.
People's rights get violated and people get abused, but do they deserve to be treated decently? Members of the human race.
Yes.
And
well...
Oh, some kids deserve to be abused?
Well, not so much kids. All kids do. No, all kids deserve to be treated good.
Were you treated good when you were a kid?
No.
How did you deserve to be treated as a kid? If you're a member of the human race.
Well, my mother told me I deserved everything I got.
Yeah, but your mother was a perpetrator of abuse and neglect. In fact, how did you deserve to be treated?
How should I have been treated? Like my niece?
Right. So if you saw yourself the way you see your niece, if you felt about yourself the way you feel about your niece, you would not give yourself permission to cut on yourself. You'd do everything in your power to stop it, just like you would if it was your niece.
I know, but I'm not my niece. I'm very screwed up.
True. But this is about getting your thinking reorganized so that you can then work on getting your feelings and your behavior reorganized. So if you're working on, it is a fact that it's okay to cut on me. It is a fact that all these negative facts about you. If those are facts and you're holding on to them tight and that's just the way it is, then might as well go ahead and cut on yourself because it doesn't matter, because you don't deserve to be treated any better. But if you go, okay, that's how I feel, it's not surprising I feel that way because look how I was treated as a kid. But what I know intellectually in my mind to be true is I deserve the same love, the same protection, same everything that my niece deserves. If you really get that, just intellectually, hasn't sunk in yet, and then you decide you're going to make that truth be the basis of your behavior, you're not going to be able to give yourself automatic permission to self-mutilate anymore. So it's like you have to be addicted to the self-hatred in order to hold on to the self-hatred to justify the cutting to make the bad feelings go away.
Okay.
So that's part of the cycle that we want to interrupt here. We want to change the beliefs, and then we want to start saying no to self-mutilation instead of just, yeah, okay, yeah, okay, yeah, okay. And then we want, simultaneously, we want to build in a bunch of alternative ways to cope with the feelings so they don't have to rely on the self-mutilation.
I don't know how to do that.
Well, I know, so you have to learn that. But part of learning these new skills is new skills of coping and new skills of thinking and believing.
Okay.
So that all, at least intellectually, that makes sense.
It all makes
yeah?
intellectual sense, yes.
Okay, so that's what we're going to work on now.
Okay.
Good. So tell me the basic reason that you're here.
Well, because the people at the, well, my wife is at the women's shelter, and they said that we can't talk again until I talk with you. They're not going to do any family therapy till I come in and talk to you.
So obviously you want to talk to your wife again?
Yeah.
Okay. And so this is a long-standing problem. It's been going on for a while, I understand, right?
Yes.
How many times has your wife been to the shelter?
I don't keep track.
Roughly?
I don't know. Have no clue.
More than once or twice?
Yes.
Maybe 5 plus?
Maybe.
Okay. How many times do you think you've beat her up over the years?
Well, how do you define beating her up?
Hitting her, slapping her, kicking her?
I don't know. Been married 15 years. I don't know. I can't remember.
Would it be fair to say it's at least dozens of times? That's not just once or twice. It's a recurrent, long-standing pattern.
It's recurrent with long-standing, but I don't know that's dozens and dozens of times.
Okay.
No.
And what is it that kind of triggers it off? Like,
Because she just doesn't do what she's supposed to do. I mean, I feel like I'm the only responsible person in the house.
what is it she doesn't do?
Oh my gosh. I mean, she's supposed to be at the house when I get off work. She's not there. I mean, she knows I have a busy schedule. She knows I have things I have to
So
get
she
done.
doesn't do housekeeping duties? Anything
Not very
else?
good. She's always late paying the bills.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she never wants to have sex. I mean, she really kind of, she pushes every button. I mean, any guy would have a hard time with this.
Right, right. And
I mean, she gets to stay home. I'm out working. She gets to stay home.
yeah,
There's not a lot she has to do. I mean, come on. Can you not clean the house, take care of the clothes, and have sex from time to time?
how old are your kids again?
3 and 5.
3 and 5. But so they totally take care of themselves and do the grocery shopping and everything themselves?
No.
So
But how hard is that? I mean, all she has to do is take care of the
But
house.
she's not just sitting there idle all day.
I don't know what she does all the time. I think she should be able to get a whole lot more done than what she does.
Oh,
but,
okay.
you know,
Well,
whatever.
that could be. So you are dissatisfied with her performance and then you decide to beat her up to prove a point, or?
But no, I mean, she kind of eggs me on.
But do you decide to beat her up? I mean, how does it
I
happen?
don't think I decided. I just think it happens.
So you just kind of blow up and it just happens?
Yes.
Okay. So it's not something that you decide or can control?
0.
Okay. So you could say it's almost kind of like a seizure in a way. It's like your brain just goes kaboom and the behavior happens.
Yeah, it blows up. And
Right.
I mean, I kind of look, I mean, you know the old saying, you see red? I see red.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why in the diagnostic manual of the American Psychiatric Association, it's actually called intermittent explosive disorder. So there's an explosion. I mean, you blow up. That's the official
They
name.
call it a disorder?
Yeah.
Huh.
But it's intermittent explosive because it's intermittent blowing up, just like you say.
How about wife not doing her job disorder?
That'd be a separate diagnosis. So if this was actually kind of like a seizure disorder, where it just happens and you can't control it or stop it, then I would imagine every once in a while you'd beat up your wife in front of the police station. Does that ever happen?
No, I can't think of say. It always happens in our house.
So you've never just all of a sudden uncontrollably beat up your wife at the supermarket?
No, but it's come close.
but it's never actually happened.
Correct.
Why? If it's uncontrollable and it just happens, why doesn't it just happen in public sometimes?
I don't know.
Well, to me, that leads to the conclusion that it's not totally uncontrollable and doesn't just happen. You're smart enough to know it's not a good plan to beat her up in public because you'll get in legal trouble. And knowing that is enough to put the clamp on it.
Okay.
So that's true or not true? You're saying okay.
I guess it's true.
So you're not,
I mean, it makes sense, but I don't know.
Okay. Because if it's really just a brain explosion, uncontrollable problem, there's not really anything you can do about it except maybe take a drug that'll turn it off, but we don't really have any drugs that seem to work very well for that. If the pattern's going to change, then it has to be something that you at least could get a handle on and get control of. It can't be something that just happens automatically. So, so the good thing about kind of admitting to yourself that it's not totally out of control, which explains why it doesn't happen in public, doesn't happen in front of the police, is if it's a little bit under control, maybe you could get a lot more under control.
Well, I really don't want to lose my wife.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to...
Do you think she's going to put up with this behavior forever?
I don't know. She has so far. I don't know. I just don't... I don't want my kids to come from a broken home like I did.
Okay. Have you ever had a drug or alcohol problem?
Mm-mm.
You know about 12 steps. You've had friends or something who've gone to 12-step
I've heard a little bit about it.
Okay. So basically it's an addiction treatment, right?
Right.
So in any addiction treatment, you got to decide to do the treatment or you never get started. So you got to make a commitment to sobriety. And you got to say no to alcohol. No, you don't just go no to alcohol and I'm done. But to get started in the recovery process, you got to say, no, I am not going to give myself permission to drink. I'm going to fight it as hard as I can, and I'm going to get all the help and support I can. And then you go to AA, and they have all this stuff they do. But to get started, you got to make a very serious commitment to saying no to your addiction. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you won't be motivated, you won't bother.
Right.
So I'm looking at your rage and beating up your wife as like an addiction problem. That you're just like somebody who gives themselves permission to get a drink or go out and score some drugs or whatever it might be. Maybe even without quite realizing it, you're giving yourself permission to beat your wife up. And you don't give yourself permission to beat your wife in front of the police station because you know you'll get in serious trouble.
Just like someone's not going to light up a joint in front of the police station.
Right. So
I think this is an addiction.
I don't care if it's literally an addiction, but looking at it through the perspective of addictions makes it be basically something that you're giving yourself permission to do. You're accepting that it's uncontrollable and you just can't help it, which all addicts do to justify continuing to use. And actually it's clear that it isn't random, it isn't out of control, it only happens in certain situations at certain times. And if you stop signing off on, okay, I give myself permission, even if it happens so quick you don't even notice. And if you get really serious about, okay, this is not allowed, I'm responsible for this, this has got to stop, I need some help stopping it, it hasn't stopped for all these years. If you walk down that path, then maybe you could have a different future. If you walk down the path of, I can't help it, it's uncontrollable, it just happens, what's ever going to change? Maybe nothing. Maybe your wife will put up with it forever. Maybe she won't. So, do you want to take that risk? Which path do you want to go down?
Well, I wouldn't be here if I wasn't trying to do something different.
Well, you could just be here because you're trying to do what you got to do in order to get those people off your back and get your wife back and carry on.
Well, I don't like being like this.
Okay. So that's something you'd consider actually making a serious commitment to?
Believing that I do have some control.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I have to. I just don't know how to find it.
So then that's something we can work on.
Okay.
We can actually get to work.
Okay.
But if you just to repeat, if you just stayed in the stance of, I can't help it, it just happens, we can't get to work.
Okay.
We're good. Glad you came in.
Okay.
Okay, so it's very clear then that your belief, your core deep down in your heart belief is you're just evil bad to the core.
Yeah.
And that's just a fact.
Yes.
And how old were you when you became evil to the core?
4.
4. So when you were born, you were not evil yet. Like the day you were born, you were not an evil baby in the nursery?
I was pretty evil.
Really? Did you like steal stuff from the newborn nursery, or
No.
did you beat up some of the other babies?
No.
What did you do that was evil?
It just was me. Just being
Okay,
born.
so you hadn't done anything evil, you were just
I was
intrinsically
just born evil.
So when during the pregnancy with you did you become evil? Just before you were born?
I've
or
always been.
So when you were one little cell big, you were evil?
Yes.
Before you were one cell, when there was a sperm and an egg, was the egg evil or the sperm?
I don't know. I guess when they came together, it was evil.
Okay, so the egg was not evil and the sperm was not evil. But when they came together, that single cell was evil.
Sure.
You're saying sure like you don't even believe it yourself.
I don't know. I don't know. I just know I've always been evil.
If you don't know when and how you became evil, how do you know that you're evil?
Because I can feel it.
Oh, okay, you can feel it. So you feel that you've always been evil.
Yeah, I mean, because evil things, bad things happen to, why else would God let bad things happen unless you're evil?
Well, that's a good question. So one of the reasons you know you're evil, and probably were ever since you were one cell big, is because God let bad things happen.
I think God would protect you, yes, if you weren't evil.
So if God loved you and cared about you, he would have done something to prevent or stop the abuse.
Yes.
And you became evil, especially evil at 4.
Right.
Because that's when you robbed a bank.
No, that's when the abuse really, that I remember the most of it.
Oh, okay. So that's when the sexual abuse started.
Right.
Okay.
That's when I started realizing I was evil.
Oh, okay.
I knew it then. I could feel it then.
Okay.
I knew it. I prayed for it to stop. I asked God to please make it stop, and he would not listen to any of my prayers. And
clearly he didn't make it stop. It continued for a long time.
right. So that's when I knew I was evil.
Okay.
I think I've always been evil.
And so the explanation for why God didn't make it stop is because you're evil, so he doesn't care about you. So why would he make it stop?
Right.
Okay. So would you agree that some children die in tsunamis?
Yeah.
Tornadoes?
Yeah.
Die from cancer?
Yeah.
Starvation?
All those things.
So God hates a lot of children.
Well, they didn't pray for him to save them. I did everything you're supposed to do.
Right. So if a child prays, then God might do something? He only saves children who pray.
Well, all I know is I was asking for help, and I totally believed, and I learned in church, if you believe with all your heart, it will happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I believed it with all my heart.
So why do all those children die from all those different causes? That's because God doesn't care about them?
No, but
They
they're not
didn't
evil.
pray enough?
Right, they didn't know to ask.
They didn't know to ask. So therefore they're innocent.
I guess.
Well, you don't feel like all these other children who died of leukemia, disasters, you don't feel that they're evil.
I don't.
And you don't feel that God hates them.
No.
And you don't feel that God failed to prevent their deaths because he didn't care about them.
Right.
But the reason that you know that God doesn't care about you and doesn't love you is because he didn't prevent your abuse.
Right. And I asked him to help me stop it. I know he couldn't have prevented it, but he could have stopped it.
Sure he could have. He could have stopped the tsunami. Could have stopped the cancer.
Right.
Could have made the chemotherapy drugs work.
Right.
So you don't think any of those children dying of cancer ever prayed to God to live?
Probably.
But they didn't live.
I know.
So you're not the only child that God's failed to protect and save.
I guess not.
So it's not unique or special to you.
I guess not.
So God equally neglects many, many children and fails to save many, many children from all kinds of things: abuse, death, starvation, abandonment. I mean, that's just a fact. The kids get hurt, abandoned, neglected all the time on this planet, right? And if God's all-powerful, he could, in fact, step in and do something about that.
Right.
But clearly he doesn't.
Right.
Now, why is beyond our understanding, I assume. Or do you have God all figured out and you understand everything he does?
No.
So is it fair to say that God is a mystery that human beings can't understand fully?
Right.
And although we can't understand it, we see that it is a fact that God doesn't intervene to prevent all suffering and death in children.
Right.
Including your suffering.
Yep.
But out of all those children, you're the only one that's uniquely evil, that God's neglecting on purpose.
That's how I feel.
I understand that's how you feel, and many children feel the same. But what I'm asking is, do you think that's factually true?
Not the way you put it.
Okay. So do you think it could be possible that, well, let's come back to God for a second. Generally speaking, most religions, God is an all-powerful, all-loving deity, right? Maybe that's not exactly accurate. Maybe God is this kind of like moody tyrant who has bad days and good days. And if he happens to be in a bad mood and you happen to be getting abused, there's nothing he's doing about it that day. Would that be an accurate picture of God?
I don't see him like that.
Do you think he gets off on watching kids being abused and hurt and
I hope
dying?
not.
So he's not a moody, erratic tyrant who protects some kids but not others because he's got favorites and people he doesn't care about. That's not how God operates.
Right.
So maybe this is not about how God feels about you. Maybe it's about how you feel about you.
Sure, I can believe that.
So maybe the reason that you're not really feeling deep inside yourself God's love is not because it's not available, it's because you're rejecting it, because you feel you don't deserve it.
Okay.
Maybe it's not so much about God's love or God's grace is not available to you, it's about your blocking it, because you feel that you don't deserve it.
So how do I fix that?
Step number one is deciding whether
that it's not about God, it's more about me?
Yeah. And whether it actually is true as a fact that you were evil since way back and caused and deserved all this bad stuff. Because if you're going to stay with that belief system, then that just makes you feel that way, which makes the feelings bigger, and then you agree more, and feelings get bigger, and you agree more, and it just locks it in. It's like a negative snowball.
Right.
But if you go, wait a minute, it's not hard to figure out why a kid would feel that way when they've been treated that way all this time. So it's a normal feeling to have in a very abnormal situation. But what's actually true is the following. And you start talking to your feelings that way, then maybe they start to get a little bit less instead of a little bit bigger.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Okay. So then the bad news now is you only have to practice that 10,000 times and it'll sink in.
Right.
Because it's not just, okay, I get it, I'm done. You got to practice it, rehearse it, practice it, rehearse it. It's a whole bunch of new thinking skills. No different from riding a bike. You don't just go, oh, so you turn the pedals with your feet and hop on and ride away.
Right.
Okay, good. Nice talking to you about that.
Okay, thanks.